Fast-moving wildfires closing in on two sides of the town of Jasper this Wednesday night.
I don't think I've had time to process it yet.
The conditions crews are up against and what they're doing to try to save the town. Spy in the sky, the scandal at the Summer Olympics that got these Canadians sent home. The Bank of Canada's trend-setting interest rate takes another tumble.
For me personally, that works very well.
The short-term benefits and potential long-term pain. And they are the best of the best.
Show up for your country and show them how great Canada is.
The Canadians going for gold in Paris.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Fires that have sent thousands of people fleeing from Jasper National Park in the Canadian Rockies are rapidly growing and have now reached the outskirts of that historic town at the heart of the park. Earlier today, one fire to the north of Jasper was 5 kilometers away. A much bigger one to the south was 8 kilometers away. Now, Parks Canada says they have moved right to the edge of town. And it says suppression efforts by helicopter proved ineffective. It says fire guards being completed by heavy equipment were not able to be completed before that heavy equipment had to be pulled off the fire line for safety. It also says water bombers from Alberta were unable to assist due to dangerous flying conditions. And as Heather Yourex-West reports, all of southern Alberta is now at extreme risk.
Blazing right now.
With fire approaching from two directions, it is a scary time for those that call the town of Jasper home. Jessica Worth's family left a house and 2 businesses when they fled, including a restaurant just out of town.
We'll be devastated if it does get burnt. And I don't think I've had time to process it yet, but when I do, it's going to be, it's not going to be good.
High winds and hot temperatures have not been kind to those involved in the firefight.
We expect today that we're going to have strong winds continuing, and we expect that this will increase our fire behavior and fire growth on both fires on all flanks.
To protect the community, high-volume sprinklers have been installed on the south side of town. But while flames have not yet reached the community, officials say there have been infrastructure losses elsewhere in the park. Those evacuated may be away from Jasper for some time. It's why volunteers are doing what they can.
So I came, made some potatoes, vegetables, stuffing, had some help with some other cooks from Jasper as well. So yeah, it's just been a crazy last couple of days.
And not just in Jasper National Park. Near Water Valley in southern Alberta, a lightning strike Tuesday saw a small fire quickly get out of control. In BC, officials say tens of thousands of lightning strikes and hot, dry winds over the past week have led to significant fire growth.
As of this morning, there are approximately 550 people under evacuation order and another 5,000 under evacuation alert.
Wildfires across Alberta have displaced thousands more.
I'm starting to think about next steps, like where do we have friends if we needed to hunker down for longer, and how much of a drive would that be?
Anxious evacuees taking it all one day at a time. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Smoke from all the fires in the mountains has been primarily blowing east. Calgary, Edmonton, and in the north, Yellowknife all had air quality indexes peaking at 10 plus today, putting everyone at risk regardless of their age or health. Well, 2 days before the Olympics start in Paris, and Canada is under a cloud, the women's soccer team, defending Olympic champions, are accused of spying on New Zealand's team by flying a drone over their practice. It's alleged to have happened twice in France. 2 staff members have been sent home, and the coach is sidelined herself. Crystal Goomansingh explains what we know about an embarrassing start for Team Canada in Paris.
Before Bev Priestman signed on as head coach of Canada's women's soccer team, she was with New Zealand, a rival club that Canada is now accused of spying on. The IOC received a complaint from New Zealand's National Olympic Committee of an incident that took place July 22nd. But Team Canada revealed there was also an incident on the 19th.
Detained by
David Shoemaker is the Canada Olympic Committee CEO.
Soon after we learned it was for using a drone to record a Team New Zealand soccer or football practice. We then worked to understand whether there were any other recordings of New Zealand or any other teams for that matter.
The COC says Priestman was not aware of this, but in a statement, she apologized to both New Zealand and Team Canada, saying she's ultimately responsible for conduct in our program. In a statement, the IOC said it welcomes the actions announced today by the Canadian Olympic Committee, noting at the Olympic Games, we expect all teams to behave and compete with respect. Miriam Kabari, soccer journalist and host of podcasts She Scores Bangers, questions why anyone affiliated with Team Canada would take such a risk.
That has made a lot of people scratch their head because New Zealand is a team that hasn't had the best games against Canada. And in fact, the last time they beat Canada was in 1987.
Team Canada has issued an apology and is investigating the circumstances surrounding the incident. Assistant coach Jasmine Mander has been removed from Canada's Olympic team and sent home. She was the person Joseph Lombardi, a soccer analyst for Team Canada, reported to. He is the one French authorities detained and questioned for operating the drone on the 22nd. He was also removed from the Canadian Olympic team and sent home. FIFA, soccer's governing body, has also opened an investigation. Team Canada plays New Zealand here on Thursday, but Bev Priestman will miss that first match in the qualifying round. In a statement, she says it's in the spirit of accountability that she has voluntarily withdrawn from coaching it. Even without her presence, all eyes will be on Canada's women's soccer team, albeit under a cloud of controversy. Donna?
Crystal in France, thanks. The U.S. president gave his first speech tonight since giving up on running for a second term. Joe Biden says the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. He will finish this term in office, but on Sunday, the 81-year-old abandoned his re-election campaign, endorsing 59-year-old Vice President Kamala Harris for the Democratic nomination.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
Kamala Harris has excited the Democratic base, who believe she can beat Donald Trump. But campaigning for U.S. president is not a walk in the park, and the Republican attacks against Harris are already underway. Jackson Prosco looks at the political battle ahead.
Winning over a divided country would be a challenge for anyone. For Kamala Harris, there are extra hurdles.
And when we vote, we make history.
Only days into her campaign, and the attacks are getting personal.
I think she was a DEI hire, and I think that that's what we're seeing.
With Republicans claiming Harris is only in her job because of her race and gender.
This is what DEI is really about.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have become a central part of the culture wars, with white conservatives stoking fears of displacement by minorities.
We need to call it what it is. It's anti-Blackness at its core. And so it isn't just the leader who has to withstand these attacks. It's all of us who would be organizing, making calls, and knocking doors.
Barack Obama faced racism.
Such a nasty woman.
Hillary Clinton stared down misogyny. Kamala Harris faces both. In the New York Times, Clinton writes, "I know she can beat Donald Trump," but warns Ms. Harris's record and character will be distorted and disparaged by a flood of disinformation and the kind of ugly prejudice we're already hearing from MAGA mouthpieces.
Her ethnicity or her gender have nothing to do with this whatsoever. This is about who can deliver for the American people.
It's nothing new for Harris. J.D. Vance, now Donald Trump's running mate, once claimed Harris's lack of biological children was disqualifying.
A bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives.
Democrats warn if Republicans keep it up, it could cost them in November.
We are going to make sure that the American people understand who is the party of intolerance.
Harris, the political veteran, is pressing on undeterred. For millions of American voters, the attacks are a disturbing reminder of how much progress the country still has to make. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The director of the FBI has revealed more detail about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. There's still no indication of the gunman's motive, but at a hearing today, Christopher Wray said Thomas Crook's online search history showed a broad interest in public figures and that he focused on Trump 1 week before the rally. He also searched details about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963.
Analysis of a laptop that the investigation ties to the shooter reveals that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy?
Wray also revealed the gunman flew a drone over the rally site just 2 hours before he opened fire, and agents recovered 3 explosive devices from his vehicle and 1 from his residence. The suspect was able to fire off at least 8 shots before he was killed by a Secret Service sniper. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington, and he addressed a joint meeting of Congress. He thanked the U.S. for its support and repeated what he said many times, that his endgame for Gaza is total victory.
The war in Gaza could end tomorrow if Hamas surrenders, disarms, and returns all the hostages. But if they don't, Israel will fight until we destroy Hamas's military capabilities, end its rule in Gaza, and bring all our hostages home. That's what total victory means, and we will settle for nothing less.
Critics of Netanyahu, including some families of Israeli hostages, call his visit political theater. More than 50 Democratic lawmakers boycotted his speech as thousands of protesters amassed around the capital today condemning Israel's war. Another small measure of relief today for millions of Canadians crushed by the weight of high interest rates. The Bank of Canada dropped its key rate by 0.25% to 4.5%. Mackenzie Gray explains what's behind the rate cut and what it could mean for homeowners and renters.
Okay, so you want to know where interest rates are going.
It's the question that continues to grip the whole country.
If inflation continues to ease broadly in line with our forecast, it is reasonable to expect further cuts in our policy rate.
Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem signaling today's quarter-point cut is unlikely to be the last for 2024.
We can anticipate further rate reductions by the Bank of Canada that will help Canadian households, but they may not come as quickly as rates increase.
Welcome news for 76% of Canadian mortgage holders who need to renew by 2026, including Jim Fawcett, who, like millions of others, will renew from their cheap COVID loan into a considerably higher rate.
As much as I like to see the rate dropping, for me personally, that works very well. But essentially starts pricing real estate and home out of the reach of my children.
A common concern of parents and just about anyone who rents. With vacancy rates at all-time lows, driven by immigration and a lack of units, it's nearly impossible to save up for a down payment, leaving the bank concerned that sticky housing costs could push inflation back up.
It would be a mistake to pin all of our hopes on our housing imbalance on interest rates. Canadians need a more fulsome, more coordinated policy response than that.
But the bigger fear seems to be lack of growth, with unemployment creeping higher and Canadians spending less as they save up to cover higher debt costs. The bank says they have a new worry, that inflation could end up being too low, a drastic change from the 2022 concern of 8% inflation.
I actually don't think it would be unreasonable to have maybe a year where inflation's a little bit below 2%. That might be okay.
With 3 more rate announcements scheduled for 2024, there's a potential for rates to be below 4% by Christmas, Donna. But economists do warn that the true impact of interest rates take at least a year and a half to work their way through the whole economy.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. An unwelcome surprise for Indigenous leaders in Canada. Coming up, why the federal government is capping funding to search for suspected residential school graves. First Nations leaders are calling out the federal government for capping the money available to search the sites of suspected unmarked graves at residential schools in Canada. Ottawa promised $320 million for communities to start searching suspected burial sites across Canada. Now it is putting a cap of $500,000 on any new searches. Melissa Ridgen explains why and the reaction.
Donna, several chiefs have said they were informed, not consulted about this cap at a conference call with Crown Indigenous Relations staff last week, that each new search for residential school graves will be capped at $500,000. That's about $200,000 for research and $300,000 for the actual field work like ground penetrating radar. This cap doesn't affect agreements that had already been signed. And from that conference call, well, word spread quickly. And even the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation was caught off guard. Executive Director Stephanie Scott says funding for search activities is an essential part of the debt of justice owed to families and nations whose children were forcibly taken away. This arbitrary funding cap is a step in exactly the wrong direction for reconciliation. Archives show a conservative estimate that upwards of 4,000 students died at these schools, most from disease and malnourishment. Not all of them have been identified, nor are their burial sites known. Crown Indigenous Relations Canada says from June 2021 to the end of May 2024, $216 million has helped 146 communities and Indigenous organizations begin searching for answers. In the past 3 years, there's been growing criticism that ground-penetrating radar searches have so far only identified anomalies, none confirmed to be children's remains. With that, residential school denialism has grown.
The lack of empathy, the horrific demands that are being placed on First Nations to come up with human remains of their own children over the span of a very short period of time is probably the sickest thing I've ever witnessed in Canadian history, other than the forcible removal of children and the indoctrination of those children in a system that killed them.
As for why this funding cap has been imposed, Crown Indigenous Relations tells Global News it's to make the search fund sustainable and to help as many searches as possible over a longer period of time. Donna.
All right, Melissa Ridgen in Winnipeg. Thank you, Melissa. Ahead, there she blows, the close call in Yellowstone National Park. These tourists in Yellowstone Park got a bigger show than they bargained for. They had to run for safety when a hydrothermal explosion shot a column of boiling water, mud, and rock into the air. No one was injured, but a section of that boardwalk was destroyed, and part of the park has been temporarily closed. In Nepal, 18 people have been killed in a plane crash. It happened just after takeoff in Kathmandu. The plane was heading to Nepal's second most populous city, Pokhara, for maintenance work. Most of the passengers were either mechanics or airline employees. The pilot was the lone survivor. Investigators are searching for the cause of the crash. In Taiwan, a powerful typhoon has made landfall after wreaking havoc in the Philippines. At least one person has died in Taiwan. Heavy rain and winds of 183 kilometers an hour slammed the island. It was like that in the Philippines, too. 13 people were killed there, and about 600,000 others have been displaced. Primed for Paris next, the Canadians with the best shot at winning a medal.
Salt Lake City, Utah.
The Summer Games are about to kick off in Paris, but today there was Olympic excitement in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's been awarded the 2034 Winter Olympics. It first hosted them back in 2002. Salt Lake was the only candidate to make a bid for 2034. The committee also gave France conditional approval to host the 2030 Winter Games in the French Alps. Just 2 days until the opening ceremony of the Summer Olympics in Paris, and Team Canada is hoping to build on its success. The 2020 Tokyo Games were one of Canada's best ever performances at the Summer Games. Many of the medalists from those games are hoping for a return to glory, along with some fresh faces ready to break out on the world's biggest stage. Eric Sorensen looks at the Canadians with the best shot of a podium finish.
It is one of the great honors in sport to carry a nation's flag at the opening of the Summer Olympics. On Friday, in a ceremony on the River Seine in Paris, 2 gold medalists, sprinter Andre de Grasse and weightlifter Maude Charon, will be Canada's flag bearers.
At first, I didn't really believe it. It's such a great honor. I don't know enough words in English to express how I feel.
It's really kind of exciting feeling for me to be able to not just go, but now have the opportunity to be, holding the flag.
They're called the Summer Games, but that has double meaning for Canada. One of the most watched athletes in the world will be Toronto's Summer McIntosh, who could win multiple gold medals in swimming starting Saturday.
Since it is such a long 9-day meet, it's just really important trying to stay in the moment. So with each race, just trying to reach my full potential and kind of execute the race as well as possible.
McIntosh is not yet 18 years old.
Her physique is perfect for swimming, very strong. She's mature beyond her years. She's had tremendous support from her family.
In all, Canada is sending 338 athletes. Damian Warner will defend his decathlon gold medal. Krista Deguchi is world number 1 in judo. Remarkably, Canada has the top athletes in both men's and women's hammer throw. Sarah Mitten has risen to the top in shot put, and what they all share is pride in competing for their country.
Yeah, just like show up for your country and show them how great Canada is. A part of that is like representing all like the kids who also want to become Olympians.
Canada has come a long way from hosting the Games in Montreal almost 50 years ago with no gold medals to show for it. In recent Games, Canada has excelled in more sports, winning 24 medals in Tokyo, all while developing a healthier culture for athletes.
It's making sure that athletes can come to the start line and knowing that they've had all the resources and support they need.
There will be so much to watch, from competitive breakdancing to basketball. Canada's men's and women's teams are among the best. And will the Summer Games indeed be Summer's Games? Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is a bird's eye view of Edmonton's high-level bridge. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.